New York Jet fans from all around the world. Welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast, the show that delivers you all your Jets content. Here are your hosts, John, Adden, and Monty. All the best to the New York Jet fans. J-E-T-S, Jets, 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 go Jets.
Welcome back to the channel, boys and girls, and whatever else you want to consider yourself. We've been off for a little while for busy weekends for all of us, including Easter. So if you celebrate that, happy Easter. If not, whatever. But Joe Douglas came through again. It looks like he made a trade, a big one. Haasan Reddick. He traded for Haasan for a conditional third that could turn into a second in 2026. Which is really interesting for a whole lot of reasons. Basically, Haasan Reddick's on the last year of his deal, 3-year, $45 million contract that he signed with the Eagles back in, I want to say, 2022. He made a second-team All-Pro during that time, which is, really good. That's top 4 edge rusher, according to all the voters.
Pretty decent.
Yeah. Was on the last year of this deal, and the Eagles decided to let go of Haasan Reddick. It seems like the reports are coming out that he wanted an extension, and they weren't going to give it to him. And they obviously put an offer out to Bryce Huff, and he accepted. And they also extended Graham. So that's all very interesting. But I guess we're going to talk a lot about that today. And probably some of the downhill effects that come from this acquisition. What are your thoughts? And I'll go to Monty first because I know Adnan and Monty have different views, and I'm kind of leaning towards the way Monty's thinking about this.
Yeah. So, listen, right off the bat, I love it. I'm just gonna flat out say it. We lost Huff because Huff. It's funny because we kind of both, we both went through our own version of the same thing of having someone. Tested someone who's, that we believe in, that needed to, kind of move for monetary reasons or needed to, do what they had to do to feed their family and secure their own legacy. And they wanted to go to different areas. They didn't necessarily want to go to different areas, but they were willing to because the situation just made dollars and cents instead of just, being good for the team. That said, I say it like this. He's Mr. Right and he's Mr. Right now because, it's only that 1-year contract like you mentioned, but puts us in the best position in terms of our ability to win now at that position, in my opinion, of the available talent. And then, just some little notes. I mean, he's, 4 years in a row of 11 plus sacks, and that's across multiple teams. So, he can go into different environments and thrive, regardless of kind of where he's at. That's awesome. He played every game last year, so he's durable. 75% of snaps is what he's been able to handle. So, he can handle a big workload, and he won't even probably more than likely, because of the way we run our scheme with the waves and swapping in and out, he won't be on the field 75% of the time. We don't have a single pass rusher who stays on the field that long. I'll go into that a little bit, later on. But, I think also from a perspective of his veteran presence, he's there now in that role, and Will McDonald now gets to walk in and watch an all-pro Pro Bowler, one of the best doing it currently. I mean, what more could you ask for as a young, budding, developing player? Like, at this point, it's like impossible for Will McDonald to fail because he's on this talent. He's got a great development, team around him. We know the Jets can develop. Now he's got Reddick in there, so Reddick, can be a great guy to kind of lead and mentor him. Additionally, now that this Reddick move shifts, McDonald to being able to be used in a manner like Bryce Huff. And I happen to think the guy who broke the sack record, in the Big 12, broke Von Miller's sack record. I happen to think it's very possible he should be almost as good or near as good as Huff when used in that strategic sniper rushing against the the weakest parts, the weakest assignments on the line. With the bend that he has, I think Riddick now elevates McDonald as well. And, another thing, just kind of side note that I really, really liked is Riddick is focused and he's a damn professional. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference with him where they're kind of asking him about the situation, if he had any juice left, this and that. One thing I really liked is, kind of like, they kind of asked him a little bit of a similar question what we asked Izzy about what they can look forward to going into the year. And, this man Riddick went line level by level of our defense, started with the line to the linebackers to the secondary, and named every starter and shouted them out for like a little bit of something like that they're doing or something that he liked about them. Like, that is a professional. Someone like that joining the team, I think, is nothing but good. The price that we got him for is right. I think he's owed what, 15 million, 16 million?
It's a $15 million cap hit. You are correct.
Yeah, $15 million cap hit. And then for a conditional third rounder, if he plays 65% of snaps, was it?
Yeah, it's like 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, 2/3 of snaps. I don't think he plays that much because, Bryce Huff, who's leaving, didn't play nearly that much. He played about 43% of snaps. So I'll go into those numbers a little bit, later on. But, Adnan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to Reddick, I love the move, right? He's exactly what they needed. He's a ferocious pass rusher, and now it's going to be really hard to double team Q. It's going to be really hard to double team Jermaine Johnson. You're going to have multiple guys coming off of both edges. I think it's an excellent move for the defense, and it's something that will kind of, I think, take their defense to the next level, right? I think another piece of it is that Reddick is a better run defender than Huff was, so you're not going to lose anything there. Whereas with Huff, there was that liability there when he was in on rushing downs or when teams ran the ball when he was in the game. So everything Monty said, I 100% agree with. I love the Reddick move. This makes me loathe the Will McDonald pick even more than I did when it happened. I don't know if you guys want me to go into that now or if we want to wait on that. But, I have a lot of thoughts on that. But in regards to purely Reddick, I think it was a great move. Like Monty said, price is perfectly fine. $15 million cap hit for an edge rusher who has 11 plus sacks per season over the past 4 seasons, is also disruptive in big games. He brings experience to this team, and there's nothing but positives here. And for a 2026 third or second rounder, I mean, you can't beat that price. So on the Reddick side, I think it's an excellent move.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, the whole move, right? Because I mean, in theory, I don't think it was part of the plan at the beginning of free agency to get Haasan Reddick, right? It was basically like really. I think it was I think what this tells you is this, right? The first move was to try and retain Huff, but it just wasn't happening because of usage and like snap counts and all that. So like, I think Huff really wanted that, and the Jets didn't foresee that in the plan with them because he's not as strong of a run defender. So you really have to kind of target his snap count to be really on passing downs, right? Especially with, you also have John Franklin Myers and Jermaine, right? Who can basically play the hybrid of both, right? So I think but it's a nice pivot that Joe Douglas did, right? Like, hey, you know what? Like, let's actually just have Will McDonald be the Huff, of this defensive pass rush, right? And then Haasan Reddick is going to be kind of doing it all as well, right? With Jermaine and John Franklin Myers. So it's like now, and unfortunately, it's actually kind of funny. I think Lawson was supposed to be the hybrid last year too, but it just didn't work out, right? And It really just did not, right? So like now you just have so much flexibility there, right? Once again, that third down pass rush is going to feature Reddick, Jermaine, and Franklin Myers and Q in the middle, probably, or like Will McDonald go in, if like one of those two guys we just mentioned is gas for 2 downs at edge or something like that. It just creates a lot more options in terms of what type of pass rushing schemes you do, and just even run defense, right? Just gives you more flexibility. And I know Adnan does not like the Will McDonald pick here, but in this situation, I think because this defense relies so much on its pass rush coming from 4 people, I'm okay being overloaded there still, which is what the case is. Whereas before this move and Huff going, it wasn't overloaded. It was just properly loaded. So these guys are going to be coming in fresh all the time, and it's just going to be havoc on those offensive lines. So, and I'm very excited about it. And yeah, Haasan Reddick is a good run defender. He's a good run defender. He's not great, but he's good. So it's just
better than Huff is what's important.
Much better than Huff.
Yeah. Run defense. Yes, he is. He's better than
That's
Huff.
what's important. So
that is what's important. And he can handle also a higher snap count, which is something that we're not totally sure on with Huff. Just for context, right? And I'm just going to reference the PFF stuff again, right? Last year was when it comes to snap counts, last year was Huff's biggest snap count year, 481 snaps. The overall, I'm going to look at the overall defensive grade. We know the pass rush was elite. The overall was a 79.7. The year before, which was actually, I guess, efficiency-wise, Huff's maybe his best year, but also, mind you, it was very few rush snaps. There was 191, right? And his pass rush grade was pretty much the same, maybe a little bit better actually in 2022. Snap counts, right? And his overall was a 90.4, obviously, because it was just isolated to that. So I guess the Jets wanted someone that could last a little bit longer, right, with more counts. So I'm totally good with this. It's a way better move than getting Clowney, right?
For too much money.
Yeah,
for too much money. Yeah. And what's probably going to come to lower this $15 million cap is probably an extension of some sorts. I just see it just to lower the cap anymore, because right now it's 15 mil, which is fine for an elite edge rusher. That's really good, because that's what he is right now. He's an elite edge rusher, Haasan Reddick, as is Bryce Huff, right? And obviously the Huff contract, the way that's situated, it's a much smaller cap hit this year, but it bubbles, right? And you're probably gonna have to pay Haasan Reddick a lot, to kind of, to give him an extension of some sorts. I just don't know what that's going to look like, or when that's going to look like, right? So when it can look, but so I don't know. I'm good with this. I'm good with this. I don't think we lost anything on the edge, in terms of pass rush.
We gained. We gained.
I know. Yeah, I agree. We gained, right? Because Haasan is, Huff's an elite pass rusher, but so is Haasan. Haasan, though, is a better run.
4 years in a row of better than Huff's best year.
Well, what I would also say in
terms of sacks.
What I would also say in relation to that, right? Something that Monty had been beating the drum on prior to, him leaving, is that Huff has only had 1 year of this production in a defense that was literally built for him to be this successful in, right? Yep. Reddick has done it across multiple teams. Yes. So I think this absolutely raises the ceiling of this defense even higher, and he's a guy, man. He's going to make Jermaine Johnson better. He could make Kinlaw better. He's going to make this front 7 just exponentially better, in my opinion.
Yeah. Funny side stat about that I saw is that Rodgers in his career, he leads his team to victory 85% of the time when he has a defense holding the opposing team to 21 points or less. The Jets are averaging 19 points per game allowed over the last 2 seasons back to back.
And that's with some blowouts. That's with some, no, that's, I mean, look, that's a really interesting stat.
So that's very encouraging. So it's not just, it's not just the defense that's getting a lift. It's, it's Rodgers too, because I feel like maybe it takes some pressure off of him, stuff like that. Obviously there's talents, things factored in, but when you look at that over the course of a career as long as Rodgers, you got to believe that he's going to be able to do it one more time.
And also, just a note, Reddick has 2 Pro Bowls in the last 2 years, which is good. Really good. And actually, in 2022, he was All-Pro 2.
All-Pro.
Yep. Right? And also, he came in 4th in
for
the
defense. Yeah, player of the year, right? Damn.
Yeah, so this is so interesting. I mean, the Jets upgraded all over the place, right? I mean, we didn't lose anything that Huff was the only thing we thought in the beginning at the end of free agency, or I guess at this point in free agency, that we lost, right? That got worse, right? But I just got that shoe just got filled again with a bigger shoe, right? And everything else seems to be really coming along. And I don't know what else there. I mean, right now it just and also this kind of solidifies that we're not drafting an edge guy at 10, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if they drafted an edge guy at 10. I would have.
Yeah,
I would have driven to one Jets try.
Been waiting outside for Joe Douglas.
Been outside with a bat, bro. No, we got to have words, Joey.
Yeah.
So
words.
We know it's not happening now. There's no way we're getting an edge.
Great.
Right? So we were joking around about it, but there's just no freaking way at this point.
So then that being said, I mean, we kind of agree. It's a big move, and it's a net positive move. And it's a move that impacts a lot of players, not just that position. So, Adnan, talk to us. What's your, what's your kind of gripe with the Will McDonald pick now that we made this move?
Yeah, I think, drafting someone at 16 overall. Let me say this first about Will McDonald. There are 2 things that are in play here, right? Or 2 questions, if you will. One is Will McDonald a bust? The answer there is no, right? He's not a bust. The second question is, was Will McDonald a proper allocation of assets? I don't think so, right? Because if you're going to draft someone at 16 overall, then you shouldn't have had to make this move for Reddick if he was ready to be the guy. Right? You draft someone like Will McDonald in the 2nd round, in the 3rd round, and you develop him and you let him learn. Do I think Will McDonald will be good? Absolutely. But I think they would have been much better served to draft somebody to help a historically bad offense after 2022. Right? Mm-hmm. After 2022, the defense was set. Most of the defense was coming back. I think all of the major contributors came back. So there wasn't going to be a spot for Will McDonald to come in and make an immediate impact, right? You go out and you bring in an offensive player, you have to throw blue chip assets at your biggest problem. And that's what the Jets had. They had a big offensive problem in 2022. They had a big offensive problem in 2023. Now, what if an offensive player that they drafted at 16 in 2022 alleviated all of their issues in 23? No, but it would have increased the talent level and allowed you to be more flexible in the things you do in the offseason without having to worry about the fact that you still need another wide receiver. You still need, another tackle. You could still use an interior offensive lineman. So there are a lot of things. We're talking about Brock Bowers. You could probably use another tight end, right? So any player that you picked at 16, I think would have been a better, allocation of the assets. And it just, for Will McDonald, for you to have to go out, pay somebody $15 million or someone who has a $15 million cap hit and trade a future, top 3 round pick. That's a top 100 pick. I just don't think it was the greatest of use of
it's a 2026 pick, dude.
No,
yeah,
it's still
and it's probably going to be a third.
Listen,
probably gonna be a
I get it, dude. I get it. I'm not saying the draft pick is the biggest deal in this. I'm just saying it's assets that you gave up because the guy you drafted at 16 isn't the guy you drafted him to be, right? The whole point of drafting Will McDonald was, well, if Bryce Huff leaves, here's his replacement. And if he was ready to be that, then they could have maybe went out and went a little bit cheaper to find that fourth defensive end, right? That fourth pass rusher. But now you're paying all of this money, which you may not have had to, and you could have improved the offense. That to me is more important.
I understand that too. You gotta go ahead, Monty.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. Like first, you got to now look at what was available at that time. That went after. We already know that the available offensive line that we could have taken was substandard in that draft. That was not a good draft class for like tackles or any. And then now let's look who went after. You have Emmanuel Forbes went cornerback, Jack Campbell linebacker. You had a DT, a bunch of people, and then so now here's where it gets arguable, right? These are probably, in my opinion, who'd be most likely to take instead of the lineman that was subpar or Will McDonald. You're looking at Jackson Smith and Enigma, JSN. Didn't really do a whole lot. Quentin Johnston, didn't really do a whole lot. Zay Flowers, okay, that would have been, I think, if we could have got
great offense with a lot of weapons. So
correct. So it's hard to say, but if Zay Flowers did what he did in Baltimore and New York, fine, that would have been a better use of that pick at that time. But you would have had to hit on that. Jordan Addison, I guess. And then now we're going on to another cornerback, Dalton Kincaid. I mean, we already have Conklin. We got Kuntz, we got Ebola, we got all these guys.
We're talking,
Let me do this real quick. All right, so of those wide receivers, right? Because that would have been the only one. Like we already know the linemen weren't worth it in the first round of that draft, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just focus on the wide receivers, right? Of the four you mentioned, right? JSN was Quentin Johnson is actually the one I like the most going into that draft because of his size. But maybe the Chargers are right on him, right? Because now they let Mike Williams go to us, which is awesome too, right? And also Keenan Allen they traded away too, so they want him to be the guy. So maybe that could turn around, but it wouldn't have. With a real quarterback, maybe that pans out, right? Zay Flowers and Addison are the two that really, I guess you could call hits from that draft in the first round. We're not going to conclude Rashid Rice, which is a whole another bag of worms with that car accident, and Puka was way out there, right? But like of those two, they're very undersized guys, right? They're very small guys. So it's like, with that, does that really solve your wide receiver hole, right? I mean, maybe with Rodgers it does, but like you're still kind of thinking like, this is not the same value that we got with Garrett Wilson, for instance.
One other thing to consider before you go, Adnan, is that Bryce Huff, for example, didn't just overnight get to where he's at. McDonald came in, he would have to learn, but I think he's going to have a shorter learning curve, and I think he'll be more viable than you think next year, like right away next year. You know what I mean? He might already. It's very possible of a path very easily exists here because just looking at the snap counts, you have 581 snaps up for grabs, and now Lawson is no longer. So, now you just have that to, spread between the available guys with Will McDonald and Reddick. So Will McDonald only had 184. He only had 184 snaps. He's only on average 19% of the snap count. So, the 581 snaps, very, very possible, maybe another 200 or, 150, whatever, go to him. And then the rest goes to Reddick or, maybe JFM, and they all take a little less and it kind of equitizes. But, it's a very good situation, man, for Will McDonald here. I totally see him being worth his salt like right away.
Yeah, and I get all that, right? And like I said, I think Will McDonald is going to be a good player. My gripe isn't completely with Will McDonald, the player. Seems like he's going to be a good player. Seems like a great kid, right? Again, you're a win now team.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring in Will McDonald, someone who's going to be a rotational pass rusher. You're telling me that if you had went Jordan Addison, who had 70 catches for 911 yards and 10 touchdowns with a garbage quarterback situation, just like the Jets after Cousins.
No, that was a garbage. What's his name went down? JJ went down, so he was the number one guy getting just fed all season long.
Right, and he did that there again.
No, he's talking about when Cousins went down.
I'm saying after Cousins went down, right? I mean, Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, these guys are excellent quarterbacks, and he's
that
still
offense,
thrived.
But the offense is good.
Is very good. The offensive line is really good.
My point
and the coaching is good. Remember, we saw what the factor coaching can play. Look at the Browns. That's coaching.
Here's my point. My point is that let's say he was half of that production. Right? Mm-hmm. We see what he can do there with a better offensive line, with a better quarterback, right? If going into this season, Jordan Addison is your wide receiver 3, right? Mm-hmm. You're still going to bring in Mike Williams. Everything might have stayed the same. But now your offense around Rodgers, if Addison is your 3rd wide receiver, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's going to impact a game more than Will McDonald is as a rotational defensive player, right? And you're still counting on big development from him. I just don't think that when you had a defense that, again, in 22 and 23, right? Mm-hmm. One of the best defensive in football, and your offense was so horrifically bad, you got to add to that side of the ball. They loved Michael Mayer, right? Yeah. You could have went Michael Mayer. You could have went Kincaid.
You know what?
I don't care at this point because I think the team right now on paper is very well positioned to be a serious contender. That's why I could care less. Like, I mean, it's nitpicking at this point, I think, to talk about, we should have done something different with the Will McDonald pick. Okay, sure, why not? But, like, you know what? The team looks really, really well positioned right now to make a serious run. Yeah, stays healthy,
Yeah.
You pointed the stat out, right? 85% if it's under 21, right? How many times last year did the Jets give up more than 21 points? I mean, if you want to look at that. Consider that ball possession was always swinging against us on that one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that, right? I mean, if you look at the schedule, when you go, game by game, they were pretty good. They gave up 16 to Buffalo, 30 to the Cowboys, 15 to the Patriots, 23 to the Chiefs, 21 to the Broncos, 14 to the Eagles, 10 to the Giants. So I mean, this defense is going to carry. When you look at under 21 points, they can definitely do that, especially when they can count on the offense a little bit, right? So I'm not worried about that. It's a frustrating thing and this just goes back to the decision-making by Joe Douglas, right? Like, that was just, to me, a bad decision. And it was something that I think you just had to put assets to the offense. But with all that said, I do think that the team is in a good spot right now, and we still have the draft coming up. So I think, this team is going to be able to position themselves very, very nicely.
The draft absolutely makes a big difference in this whole conversation, depending on how we come out. If we had our back pressed against the wall because of the decision to go, edge last year instead of someone we could have got, and then we miss out this year, fine. I get it, but I still think that, I still think it's a great move ultimately. But I, you know what, I am a little bit more, leaning, to your side a little bit more than I was before. Before I was definitely like, I can't see his point. I definitely can see your point now, because it's like, your does offensive player that we could have got, assuming we did get that person, does that lift the offense more than McDonald lifts the defense? And the answer is probably yes. But another thing you got to think of too is when you're in the draft, your ideal, when in doubt, or your ideal just in general is typically best available talent. Like that's the default, and that's the kind of tried and true tested strategy that's worked for the most teams over time, is just by going with the, regardless of need.
Yeah, I mean, it even works in fantasy if you really think about it.
Correct.
Right? Like, hey, if there's a run of tight ends in like the 7th round, are you gonna panic and draft a tight end right there on the spot, or are you just gonna wait and get the best available at another position? It's kind of the
exactly.
same thing. I mean, that's kind of, I think, what's going on there. I mean, but like, also mind you this, right? If the Jets drafted, let's say, one of the linemen, right, or like a wide receiver, right, at that position 16 last year, do they actually go out and get one of these other talents they got, like Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, Mike Williams? Like, do they actually go out and do that, or do they depend on them with Rodgers and another year of Rodgers? That's also a question too. I say maybe not, because they're dependent on they put themselves dependent on that versus like a dependable, proven guy at that position, right? So like, I'm okay. I'm like, look, perfect world, Aaron Rodgers doesn't get injured last year, and we just smoked the Bills 50-0, right? And we won, and then we keep going, but it just didn't happen. And you just gotta make do with what you gotta make do. And the Ulbrich solid defense relies on a lot of guys going at the quarterback at different times and rotating the shit out of them. And that works, right? So
we know it works, exactly.
And you could have been in a situation, Adnan, right? Check this out. Could have been in a situation where you didn't have Will McDonald, you lost Bryce up anyway because he wanted to get more snaps regardless, or you were forced to use Huff in more snaps and his efficiency just decreased, right? And you just got killed on the run, right? So there's a lot of ways this could have gone that maybe we're not thinking of at this point. So I mean, I'm okay with it right now going to 2024, 2025, knowing that we're set. Our defense is going to be same or better next year. Our offense is definitely going to be better. There's just no fucking way they're going to be worse, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are going to draft best player available at an offensive position.
I literally feel bad for oncoming offensive coordinators trying to have to scheme for, Quentin, Kinlaw, JJ, Will McDonald, and now Reddick. And then, you're trying to get your guys open, but Sauce Gardner's in your fucking face, and CJ Mosley, and then you have DJ Reed. That's crazy. It should be sack fucking city next year.
We got Solomon Thomas back, right? Because if so, that is 6 first-rounders on the defensive line.
Yeah, they signed him. Yeah, no, listen.
That's
I think
fucking nuts.
Yeah, the defense is going to be the defense is going to be excellent, right? I'm really looking forward to seeing how they can deploy these guys. And listen, for again, like you said, as good as Bryce Huff is, this defense hasn't had an edge rusher as accomplished and explosive as Reddick, right? So I think that Reddick could unlock something more that we haven't seen from this defense. So I think it's the Jets are in a really good spot right now. And I wanted to switch gears to something else that came up to my mind, that popped up in my mind over the past couple of days. And it's in regards to Aaron Rodgers and something that's driving me nuts about the narrative around him.
Oh,
right?
God.
So
I think I know.
So there was so after the Haasan Reddick trade happened, I think you guys probably have heard of, maybe follow a little bit, Mike Clay. He's
Of course.
Yeah, he's the NFL guy on ESPN. And someone tweeted at him, hey, man, I got to ask you, what do you think about the Haasan Reddick trade? He says, well, something to the effect of that depends on if Aaron Rodgers is a top 10 quarterback or not. And what's driving me nuts is that, Aaron Rodgers, can he be a top 10 quarterback? Can he be a top 3 quarterback? Absolutely. But he doesn't have to be.
Correct.
Right? If you can get this quarterback room from 32nd to 16, that's an 11-win team.
Yeah,
right?
easily.
And anything more than that is gravy. And I just keep on the national shows, all I just keep hearing is that, well, is Rodgers a top 3 quarterback? Because if not, what's going to happen? And it's dude, they don't need him to be that. And it's it's making me so angry that people don't see that.
Yeah, I had a big problem with what's his name had some stupid similar thoughts. Colin Cowherd. He just came out and was just saying, he was also had some stuff to say about Aaron Rodgers. He, first of all, a month ago, he questioned his football IQ. He on air, he did that.
Yep.
And then today, what was he saying? He was like, Aaron Rodgers just doesn't seem as committed as those other guys Brady and Breeze and Peyton Manning when those guys are later in their career. Bro, shut up. Aaron Rodgers is great, and if he isn't spending his entire life with his nose in the fucking playbook and watching film and jerking it to film, that's okay. The guy, like you said, just needs to be a middle of the road QB. Anything above that is mega gravy and will just be so much better for it, but he doesn't have to be. And I hate this. Yeah, I really do agree with you on this narrative.
Real quick, why does anyone listen to Cowherd? I mean, honestly, the guy is maybe the most ridiculous wrong gas bag I've ever seen.
I don't understand it either, but the guy makes fucking millions and he has his own show.
And look, I have him on in the background, right? He has good guests on, right? So he's on. But what I would also say, Monty, back to what you were saying about what Colin had said about not being as dedicated and all of that. I'm going to be honest, man. One of the reasons why that doesn't matter is because this is his offense, right? He didn't go somewhere else and now has to learn a new offense. He can just walk in the door and know what needs to be done. And I'm sorry, last offseason, if you saw him, he was in on everything. And guess what? The Jets didn't get him until around this time? Maybe a little bit earlier, so it's
before the draft. Before the draft.
Yeah, so a week before the draft. So it's starting after the draft, you're going to see him everywhere. He's going to be around for activities. He's going to be cleared to play. That's just what he does. So, it's just Colin, he has a problem with Aaron Rodgers that I don't understand. He's always had a problem with him and Russell Westbrook. And I'm dude, just give it a rest, man. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the world. And,
perfect. Yes.
And, he's, so it says, but the other thing is, as negative as he is about the Jets, that bodes well for us, right? Because he's always wrong on the Jets, right? He's the guy who said that Gase and Darnold were going to lead.
He tweeted that. He tweeted that.
He
tweeted that they were going to go. He was like, "Oh, get your AFC championship tickets ready or something like that." I remember that.
That's what he said
after the Detroit game that Darnold we got a quarterback, which was short-lived. There's just a lot wrong with that guy, Cowherd. I just don't understand him. Whatever.
People.
I don't follow any of those gas.
But people fall for it. I don't know if you had it. If you had uploaded it or not. But I sent you guys in the chat that stupid post from that idiot in the official Jets fan group saying that Will McDonald is a bust because of the Reddick pick. That's what I'm saying is these dumbass ideas spread. You know what I mean? I'm sure he got that from some stupid, person he listens to that doesn't research shit, that doesn't know anything, and just kind of like talks out of their neck, about the Jets. I just will be so glad to finally shut these guys up. And it kind of brings me to a side point. You notice now we didn't hear about that. We didn't get that Riddick trade leaked either, if you guys know. So that's 2 back-to-back trades now that literally just came out of fucking nowhere, no type of lead. So it looks like we may have gotten rid of the right people in the offseason in terms of cleaning house, with these guys.
I would also say I think the Jets are usually pretty buttoned up, right? We didn't know anything about Morgan Moses. We didn't know anything about Reddick. And now, you're starting to hear, the Jets are dying to trade out of 10. That's just all smoke screen stuff, that teams are throwing out there. So I think under Joe Douglas, when it's come to player moves, most of the things have been kept under wraps, which is something he's really good at. So definitely appreciate that there. And yeah, I think people just need to stop talking about Rodgers as if he has to be a better version of Mahomes to be successful. But I also think, in all honesty, that's kind of like a quote unquote jet tax, right? If Aaron Rodgers was quarterbacking anywhere else, would people say, man, if they can just get 80% of prime Aaron Rodgers, this team is good to go? But because it's the Jets, Aaron Rodgers has to be, 10x Patrick Mahomes.
95% of normal of him is going to be the minimum acceptable threshold of Rodgersism.
Well, this is going to blow up in our faces somehow that we haven't even thought of. I mean, who would have thought last year everything would have happened the way it did, right?
True, I know.
It was just, oh God, I have nightmares every once in a while about that game, that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I really hope it works out. I mean, I would say this: if you're a betting man, just slam everything on the over for everything Jets you can find.
I mean,
I've already started doing it. I have them winning the AFC East. I have obviously a Super Bowl bet on them. I'm looking for the player prop stuff too. I mean,
Did you look at how many games were 19 or under 21 points that we held them to?
Yeah, it's actually not as much as you think. It's 9 games actually.
Okay, so you got to think we win at least those 9.
We won 2. I think we won 2 of the games that went over. I could be wrong on that. I know it's the Washington game. I just had it up on my screen.
Yeah. So with Rodgers, you got to think we win at least those games for sure. And then we win, maybe 50-50 of the remainder, which is well over.
Well, I'll also remind you that this team's going to be playing a little bit different next year, right? I mean, obviously the defense is going to do its thing. We already know that, right? Even if one goes down, I mean, I guess the most important defensive player next year is probably Quinnen, if you really think about it. Or you can argue Sauce too, but I would say Quinnen more than Sauce, just because of the pass rush being the big important thing, right? But essentially that offense is going to be run first. I mean, it just screams that right now with John Simpson and Morgan Moses being there. That's going to be a run. And even ABT and I guess Tippmann's is split 50-50 in terms of run and pass blocking ability. But and Tyron Smith's obviously a pass blocking guy, right? Who can obviously run block. He's very good. But it just seems like this is going to be a more run heavy scheme, which is fine because Brees is, a top 5 talent at that position. I think it's no question at this point. Yeah. He's a top 5 talent. I mean, even if you do the fucking fantasy shit, I know you like doing that, Monty, every once in a while. And I don't know why I'm doing it again, but I'm looking at mock drafts and rankings. He's the second running back off the board in all fantasy next year.
It makes sense. I mean, from a PPR perspective, he's an absolute demon monster. He's going to be catching passes all day long out of the backfield, probably lining up, maybe in the slot, whatever. And, just he's going to be, the check down for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you saw how well Aaron Jones was able to perform with Rodgers. I think there's no reason to expect that Breece Hall, who I think is a superior talent, and is younger and is, in better shape. At 2 years now removed from injury.
in the one game, 1 and 3 snap games that Breece Hall and Aaron Rodgers shared the same field. Well, we were Adnan. We were at that game, and
I was at one of them.
When Breece was just like a just filthy animal in that fucking game at Green Bay, and then obviously the one snap he got with Rodgers coming off an ACL, 80%, one carry for like 30 yards.
Well, I think that's the other thing, John, that you're saying, right? Like Breece Hall did what he did last year right off of an ACL injury. Usually it takes
offensive line.
Yeah.
That's what I was just saying. Now he's 2 years removed.
Yeah. So getting back after that, man, like he could be the best running back in football.
It's very possible the last year was not his best. Like he literally he might have another gear, and that's scary.
Agreed. For the NFL. And this offense is really, really coming into form now. And I really think that Douglas has done a good job so far. And the draft is it's just so nice that all this happened before the draft, because now you're just so flexible at 10. You have 100 different options. You can trade up, you can trade down, you can stay pat and pick, 5 different guys. There are just so many options. So I think Douglas really positioned them nice for the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe it's already almost draft time too. Like it's I feel like it was just January a little bit ago, and then now we're already in April. So we
were just thinking about starting this podcast, and then
exactly.
So we're 4 months in. It's got a couple of guests. It's been a
nice
crazy
ride.
4 months. Yeah, and I think it's just going to get better and better.
I can't wait till it's season time.
We're gonna do a mock draft episode. Yep. I think we should probably do it maybe next week or the week after that. But that's a discussion topic, obviously. But it's just gonna be it's gonna be fun now, because pretty much all the moves are done, except there's still a lot of talent that's still out there.
There's so much talent that's still out there at safety, at running back, at receiver.
I wouldn't say so much. I would say safety. And there's a lot of
Tyler Boyd is still there, right? Not saying that the Jets are going to sign him, but it's kind of crazy that Tyler Boyd is still there. Yeah, and but safety is just loaded. You got a bunch of guys that could be day one starters that are still available.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. But you kind of already know, based on where everyone is ahead of us, what the needs are and what teams are thinking, right?
It's interesting because a lot of these needs, like you said, John, are defined, right? So that's a really good thing to know. There's not too much ambiguity, I feel like.
I really hope that it works out for us to be able to trade back, man. I mean, it's almost unfair to think about if that goes well for us, but if we can walk away from this draft with a first round or second round wide receiver and a first round or second round tackle, that's it. I mean, you might as well just pencil us in for a playoff spot, from the beginning. I think there's no way that we don't destroy the over and end up, a high seed in the playoffs if we're able to pull that off from the draft. Obviously, it's the Jets, so the turf monster could eat up all our players as usual. Let's not
talk about this.
But other than that, from a positive standpoint,
Well, question for you, Mike. Did we not learn anything from the last episode we did, where basically Steve told us that you can't really make a real conclusion based on turf monster or grass monster?
Yeah, I mean a little bit.
He's a medical professional,
I know. Listen, I trust him more than any of us here, but at the same time, he's one opinion. It's a lot of the universe of medicine is a lot more than one really intelligent dude. He's obviously more than us, but I think that he's not, maybe I'm not saying he might be right, but I'm just saying I've read a lot and I've spoke to other doctors as well who kind of, agree and disagree. So.
Right, but we also have to keep in mind that Rodgers had a little calf issue in the preseason, right? So this kind of makes sense, why you would want to push off a little bit harder than usual on that one ankle, to kind of make up the lack of strength you're having in the calf, right?
Yeah.
So like I see I learned something. I took some education from that, and I listened more than I spoke, right?
Yep, I was taking mental notes too, man.
Yeah. Yeah, mental notes are good. Anyway, do we want to talk about anything else, like just Justin Hardy going to the Browns or anything like that? I know that happened. We can just mention it, I guess.
One funny thing, we can definitely get to that, but one funny, did you guys see Aaron Rodgers' performance-based pay for this year?
Yeah, it was like $1.
$81.14. That's hysterical to me. Like, he got a direct deposit for $81.14. Like, what do you think he was thinking?
Imagine.
We should actually use that exact dollar figure to pump in ad money for our fucking or like for marketing our fucking our show, on YouTube and all that. Everything right now we're doing is totally organic, right?
Yeah.
But that would be funny just to use that exact amount and see if it actually helps.
Imagine that we'd go to the moon because we put it 81.14. But yeah, I thought that was just a funny note that came out of today. But yeah, if we want, let's talk Hardy a little bit. I don't think it's that big of a move. But anyone want to go first?
John, you go first.
Yeah. The Jets were definitely a better unit with him in there on special teams. They really were. I mean, like, I think, what was it? There was 2 punt returns for touchdowns that have happened in the last 2 years. I think I can recall, right? There was the Charger game and then the Lions game, right? And I think both games he was not in at the play, right? But I could be wrong on that. I don't know how you replace that. I don't know exactly. But it's special teams. It shouldn't hurt you, but I mean, it has hurt teams in the past. I mean, for context, right? If you look at, I think it's the 2010 Chargers who had the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense and still didn't make the playoffs. If you look at the special teams, it was gargantuously garbage. The Packers had the home field advantage throughout the playoffs and had garbage special teams, and they lost to the Niners at home. And it did cost them in the end. So it's just special teams, don't discount it totally because it happens every, I guess you get what, like roughly like 10 punts a game, like a couple field goals, right? So you get about I would say 15 to 20 special team snaps a game, right? On average, right? If you really think about it, it's still part of the game, right? That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, and he was a good cover guy. So like, listen, the last thing you ever want to do is give up a special team score. It's fucking demoralizing because it's like, here you just busted your ass and then boom, they just whoop, whoop, bam, punt return gone. You know what I mean? So if you don't have the right guys in place to prevent that kind of stuff, you can derail the performance of a game, even if everyone else is kind of, where they need to be. So yeah, I get it. But I think his impact to the special teams, even as a good cover guy, I think it's not enough to where we take a big enough hit to where we need to be concerned. Yeah, so I'm okay. Unfortunately, I'm unfortunate, but I'm okay.
And look, if he's the guy we're looking at, like, damn, we lost Justin Hardy. It was a pretty good offseason, right? So, like, I also look at it. It's why you brought in a guy like Isaiah Oliver, right? Irv Charles was incredible on special teams. You have some late round draft picks, and the other thing with Justin Hardy, unlike Oliver, like Hardy is a 0 on defense. You can't play him, right? So you're carrying a guy to just be a special teams guy, which I know when you have a guy like Matthew Slater for the Patriots or Steve Tasker for the Bills is important. I don't think Justin Hardy's either of those guys. I know he was a great locker room guy. Everybody loved him. But, like you said, Monty, that there are times where you have to just say, look, we can't pay that. And we have like undrafted players and, bottom of the roster guys who do excel at, on special teams. So, I think that's fine. And also going back to your Chargers point, John, like the Jets have one of the best kickers and punters in the NFL. So I think like Morstead will kind of help that whole, not having Hardy. So I'm not really concerned about it. Now that I say that, I'm sure they'll give up 7 punt return touchdowns, and that's why they won't they won't win they won't make the playoffs. But if they're gonna lose somebody, if their two biggest losses are Huff and Hardy, I'm successful all season in my opinion.
So I just was I just was reading earlier that from FTN that the Jets special teams is ranked 5th in terms of defensive value over average. So if this drops us down to 7th, 8th, 9th, not a big deal.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, and the last thing I think we should probably just talk about, maybe just remaining free agents. I got a top 20 free agents list, and I think it's just an interesting list because you could still technically add more, which sounds nuts as it is, because you're thinking to yourself, gee, where are we getting this money from? Well, we still can do a lot with the contracts that exist right now. But I'm just going to read the list out, and also I'm going to count on this hand the number of safeties that are available. Okay, number 1, Justin Simmons. It's 1. Gilmore, Stephon Gilmore. It says Clowney, but isn't he in Carolina right now?
Yeah, he's out in Carolina, so that might be
all right. Quandre Diggs. That's 2. Julian Blackmon, Colts. That's 3.
He actually just re-signed. He just re-signed with the Colts today, Blackmon.
He did? Okay, so he's out. Okay, so 2 names off this list, and we're only 5 names in, right? But there's 2 safeties. Xavier Howard, who's got 4 kids now. Calais Campbell.
We had 2 since we started this podcast.
Adoree Jackson, Jamal Adams is 3, which is crazy. He still doesn't have a home. Steven Nelson, J.K. Dobbins. That could actually be really interesting because he's got a relationship with Aaron Rodgers now. That's interesting, though. Odell Beckham is still out there. Interesting as it is. You got Micah Hyde. That's 4th safety. Tyler Boyd. Center Connor Williams, which is interesting. Tierre Tart. Donovan Smith, who said he wanted to be a Jet. We got Michael Thomas. Akella Witherspoon from the Rams, and then Michael Gallup. Any names there kind of throw any interest to you guys at this point?
Not really.
Justin Simmons, right? Did you say him? You said him, right?
You did.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the only name where I'm like, if I wanted them to do something, it would be him. But I'm also totally fine with just waiting until after the draft and then bringing back Ashton Davis, right?
Yeah. Can you throw that list up on the screen?
Well, yeah, it's not. Let me go to Spot Track real quick, and just when you guys talk. But actually, it's interesting. Becton is still out there too. Which
keep going.
First, like I said, it's like Simmons to me would be the guy.
He's just going to be too expensive.
He's going to be expensive, right? But
I would say him too. But
here's what I would say, man. Like as the clock ticks. Guys like him sometimes say, hey, you know what? Let me take a 1-year deal with a team that can win a championship, right? Get all this exposure and then get my big payday the following year, right? Will it happen? I don't know. But just a consideration, right? They're not going to pay him at the top of the market. So, he would be interesting. I find it fascinating that John is surprised that Jamal Adams hasn't been signed yet. Like the guy is awful. And same thing with Becton. I'm sorry. I'm not shocked he's not signed either. And it's funny how if you look at all the guys that the Jets let go.
Oh yeah.
I got
them signed.
Let go. Let me just show that list.
Yeah, you know who else I'm for all the stupid Zach Wilson truthers out there is Zach Wilson's still not signed too, and that's it's also not good.
He is a Jet right now, still technically.
Yeah,
all right,
still
so here you go. Lawson still free, Lakin still free, Dwayne Brown obviously still free, Uzama still free, Becton free, Cobb free, Woods free, McGovern free, Turner free, Yeboah will be re-signed, so that's wrong right there. Davis free, Simeon free, and then all these other guys are just whatever.
We want to get rid of Zach Wilson, so he kind of is on that list.
Yeah, so he's kind of
but he's still technically got
what I
know that. I'm just saying
is that
on the chopping block.
You look at this list, it's kind of crazy how again the guys that they got rid of. outside of Huff and Hardy just got signed today, like no one was really clamoring for. Nobody's out there, beating down their doors. So it
Let's
just
see.
shows that
You got taken there. I just did. Yeah, most of these are ads, right? I guess Quentin Jefferson was taken, right? Now he's in
Quentin
Cleveland,
Jefferson
right?
went to Cleveland.
All right, so this is how you do this list, right? You sort here. Okay, Whitehead is gone. Bryce Hall, both of them are Tampa. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Bryce Hall, we already obviously mentioned. Cleveland and Hardy. Cleveland took 2 of our guys. That's interesting in itself. Yeah, that's really it. Nothing really went out the door.
Yeah.
And then all these guys
like you said, Huff was replaced by a better player. So, I think that's and these ads that they made though, man, just looking at that list makes me so happy.
And wait, go back to the other list, to the available that we were talking about that started the list.
Still free agents were ours.
Yeah, the one right in the screen before this. I think you could probably
everyone but Yeboah should be here. Just so you know. Everyone but Yeboah. They did give him the restricted free agent tag.
No, I'm talking about like Hunter Renfrow, all those guys that
Oh, you want just absolutely don't matter as long as you're fucking free.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we can do this by position too. I mean, Bakhtiari's still out there. Tannehill, the rumor is that he's the best fit for Denver until they figure out QB. Jason Jackson is still free. Wow, that's interesting too.
I would take.
He was the big free agent signing at corner a couple of years ago.
I would take Renfrow on a really cheap deal.
Dude, listen,
we're 4 going in right now. I don't hate that. Eddie Jackson's still out there.
Yeah,
that can't be true. Eddie Jackson's still there?
Yeah, I mean, safeties haven't been signing.
Yeah, well, I haven't really heard much in the safety market.
I'll start by position just for kicks, right? A lot of wide receivers, we knew that. There's just a lot of them out there. Sterling Shepard, that's interesting too.
I'm too injured. I don't even want to say that.
A lot of tight ends, a lot of tackles. Chuma Doga, if we ever wanted that.
Yeah, no thanks.
No, I confirmed it. He's still, as far as the last thing I can find, a free agent, Eddie Jackson.
Wow. A lot of safeties. And this doesn't have the free safeties here. Right tackle, not that many. 2 of them are Jets, which is ironic. Running backs, the only name that's interesting. 2 names are in. Well, 3 names if you include Kareem Hunt.
Wait, is AJ Dillon still on that list? Or did he sign somewhere?
No, I think they re-signed him. Right? Am I wrong on that? Someone Google that.
No,
because
I think he's available still. Hold on.
Maybe he's listed as a fullback. Hang on. A lot of names. Yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm scrolling like this kind of tells you that there's a lot of people out there still.
Yeah.
And Douglas will find value.
Oh wait, no. AJ Dillon's back on the Packers. Yep. He did a 1 year deal.
I was right. I'll get the banner to say that I was right.
I guess him and Josh Jacobs is probably a pretty good. He probably wants to learn.
Yeah.
He paired up with that guy.
Yeah.
Henry Anderson still out there.
Yeah, I mean, of the running backs, though, I like J.K. Dobbins, man. I think, how much injury luck can he have? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, I don't know if he really can really be injured every single year. Plus, with a room like with Izzy and Brees in it, he's not going to be, leaned on as heavily.
I'm just curious on Marcus May. He's still a free agent, too.
Like, imagine if Dobbins is your change of pace, like third down back.
Yeah, no, I mean he's got a lot of talent.
Friend of the show is the Abanaconda, so.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Izzy's a friend of the show, so I want him to get his over JK. I'm just saying, I wouldn't mind having JK in the running back room.
Yeah, I mean, look,
along with them, like you want the best that you can get.
Yeah, you're gonna need multiple running backs,
and right now we only have 2.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is Michael Carter a free agent right now, technically?
No, I think he's on the Cardinals.
He's gone. He's gone.
Yeah, I know, but I guess he's going into his 4th year now, right?
Yeah.
Technically. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Wow, he's at $3 million cap hit for the Cardinals this year. That's interesting.
Sure. I mean, I
That's
guess
a lot. That's a lot for him.
he doesn't. I
foot.
mean, he also doesn't have a lot of miles on him. You know what I mean? I think he's got some level of value, but yeah, I think that's a little bit much. But I guess they're looking to get someone else.
Yeah, and I was just kicking around for kicks. Donovan Knight, Bam Knight. He was signed for $985K.
Yeah, no shade, but I wasn't really impressed with. I think he just had that great little breakout stretch, just at the right time versus the right defense, and he looked good, and then he just fell off and never regained.
Yeah, and I think fans
it's like a Jeremy Lin situation.
Yeah, and I think fans kind of fall in love with that idea of like the undrafted guy, right? Like fans just like really like those stories, like with Robbie Anderson, like all that kind of stuff. So I get the excitement, but at the same time, a lot of these guys aren't drafted for a reason. For every, Robbie Anderson, there are 10,000 guys. Yeah, Bryce Huff, there are 10,000 guys that don't make it. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's probably time. I think for free agency, I would say is like 95% done. We're probably ready to do mock drafts now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now, we're in mock draft month, right? So
it's April. It's April.
It's April.
It is
and
very
these. Yep. Before we said we would have held off just because we wanted to see the kinds of moves like the O lineman that we got, and then now we have Reddick and stuff like that. So we have a lot much more clear of a picture going into any potential mock drafts than we did about a month ago when we talked about this last. So let's get to it.
Question for you on this. I'm gonna list some of the major acquisitions we did, and you're going to rank it in terms of the change of teams. Tyron Smith, he was the best tackle that had a change of team or a re-sign, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't anyone. He was number one ranked offensive line.
Okay. Now let's talk about Reddick. Arguably the second best edge rusher that changed teams or re-signed after Brian Burns, I would say. Or
so
close
Burns, and then who else? Who else even changed teams? You talking about what, 3 people?
There were some like Clowney did, Bryce Huff obviously did. So yeah, I think Reddick, you could say, I think probably 1B.
Yeah, so
Burns is 1A.
Yeah,
okay.
Burns, Burns, then Reddick, then Huff, then.
Okay, and now last, Mike Williams. Where does he rank amongst the wide receivers that were moved around?
I would, probably third. Probably third, right? Because I think I think
top
Ridley.
5, I would say. Maybe.
Yeah, I think Ridley is 1. I think Keenan Allen or Ridley.
Higgins,
Keenan Allen, Ridley. Those are all better.
Well, but they haven't
I would
moved
say
yet,
Mike
right?
Williams is probably about the same level as Ridley, actually. I had to really think about it.
You'd say who's the same level?
Ridley and Mike Evans are about the same level.
But I guess the question is, are we taking into account injuries?
I like Evans more than I like Ridley.
Right.
Oh, I did too. I thought Evans and Higgins were 1A, 1B for this free agency round. But nonetheless, Mike Williams is an elite or near elite at that position. Yes or no?
Absolutely. He was he was the best. He was the number 1, and Higgins the number 2, and then Calvin Ridley the 1-3.
Okay, so basically what I'm getting at is this: the Jets basically got elite talent at 3 of the 5 premium positions in this round of free agency. Right. And the other 2 positions are quarterback, where we have Aaron Rodgers, and cornerback, where we do not need any upgrades whatsoever.
I would also say in the backup quarterback market, they got a top 3 to 5 backup, right? So I think that
they did too. Yeah. I would say this: if you were to grade the free agency round that Joe Douglas did, you almost have to give it an A- at the very least.
Yeah, B+, A-. Yeah, I think so.
And what else could you have done that was better besides retain Huff? But if you retained Huff, you weren't getting Reddick.
Right. No,
Right.
I
And
think
Reddick's actually the improvement in terms of,
right.
for this
Exactly.
year. But in terms of for the future, yes, if you're looking at, because remember, you have to take in consideration not how good it makes the team next year, it's how good it makes the team, period.
I know.
I don't think it's not just
we have a small window with this guy.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to look at everything, which is what a GM should be doing.
Well, I think Douglas is in a very precarious spot, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why, listen, if Douglas had job security, I know you guys poo-poo it, whatever. He would not trade a 2026, top three round, top 100 pick if he knew he was going to be back. He's operating as he has 1 year. The whole franchise is operating that way.
Yeah,
so
he could have done more then. If that's really the case, and you were just saying F the future, like there's more he could have definitely put on to the
right,
books.
But then you sacrifice potentially losing like the guys you're gonna have to sign in 2 years.
Exactly. That's the thing. Is the move that he made.
So he is looking a little at the future. That's what I'm
saying.
And that's what a good GM has to do.
Right.
So
and I think
I'm saying when you look at the balance, it's a A- B+. It's nothing less than that. It can't be less than that.
I agree completely, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
I think,
what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
100%. And one of the things, right, like he signed Mike Williams instead of going out and getting somebody else because he understands Garrett Wilson is coming up in a couple of years, right? You understand Sauce and Jermaine Johnson. Breece Hall only has 4 years because he was a second rounder, so he comes up sooner than everybody else. So I think he's done it.
Tag.
Right, no, absolutely. But at the same time, you still got to pay the guy, right? So I think you're right, Monty. I think A-, B+. I think he's done a good job balancing the future as much as he can while also creating like a win now roster. So,
that's what I was saying. Why it's not an A or an A+. That's all I was saying. Not that it's not great.
All I know is this. I wish I had this prepared, but I've been very busy on the side, and you guys know that already. But essentially, like, I would love to create a montage of just like Jets Twitter just going ape shit when he wasn't doing anything early on. You know what I mean? Just like look at all the comments, like, what the fuck is he doing? Remember the clip that we shared, Monty, when it was like the Peter Griffin basically like, I'll do this, and it's like, you want to do anything else? Yeah. So like, it's just really great that like, that's a deep moment in the past. But anyway, I guess we will go to final thoughts. If I could scroll my mouse appropriately. Yeah, there we go, to the little thing that says final thoughts. So who wants to go? Adnan, you can go first. Fuck it.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, look, Reddick move, home run. Anybody who doesn't like the move, I'm sorry, you don't know ball, right? If you think anything was wrong with the Reddick move, you just don't know what you're talking about. I also think that, again, asset allocation, we'll have to see what Joe Douglas does in this draft. But I'm still questionable on the McDonald pick. Moving on from all of that, I think that, we have a lot of cool stuff coming up on our end. Definitely going to have an exciting little mock draft. That should be cool. And we're right into draft season. Now I shift into draft mode. Now I'm going to spend, probably all of my evenings where I have free time doing PFF mock drafts and trying to figure things out like that. So this is going to be a really interesting time. I think this is one of the best times on the football calendar, a month leading up to the draft. We may see some interesting trades. I did see a report, don't know how credible it is, but did see something saying that the Niners were going to wait until draft day to trade Ayuk. So that could be an interesting story. So I think there are a lot of things that are coming up that are going to not just give us a lot of good content, but are going to impact the Jets. So great month for football. And then, in 6 weeks, the schedule is released. So we have a lot of really cool things coming up. So I'm really looking forward to it. Haasan Reddick was an absolute home run. And, off we go.
Yep. Well said, man. I'm super, super happy with this pickup, super happy with how this offseason's gone. I love what Reddick does for our defensive line. I love how he can help us balance out our snap count. I love how he can help, mentor Will. I think it's just nothing but good. And I think this team is quietly demolishing the off season, quietly just ruining, the off season. We, in a good way. And I love, what Joe's been up to. I think it's great. And, just looking toward the future, I mean, I think we have a couple of Dolphins that might, come on the show for a nice little lively debate, so we'll talk a little more about that upcoming. And I guess a little bit on a sadder note, rest in peace to Vontae Davis. He was unfortunately found, unalived in his home very recently. I believe it was on Sunday. So, heart goes out to his family and to him and to, people that love him and whatnot. But pretty much, still super pumped for the year ahead and, happy with the way things are right now and cannot wait for this draft.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Jets salary cap right now, right? Just the number that's kind of projected out as this. It's actually interesting. Technically with all contracts, not top, we're over almost 11 mil, but top 51, it'd be 2.2. And that doesn't include, I believe, the draft picks, which you're going to have to reserve about $9 million for. So it's going to be, I think what you're going to expect in the next coming weeks leading up to the season, you're going to see some restructuring of some deals. That's going to, I can't speculate on what I think it's going to be. I think it might be a DJ Reed thing. It might be a John Franklin Myers thing. I believe Mosley was already restructured. I could be wrong on that. He was already restructured.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, he was restructured.
Yeah, he was already restructured. Yeah, so that will be interesting in itself, right? Because, John Franklin Myers right now is sitting at 16.3 cap hit. DJ Reed is 15.6. Also, Reddick is probably going to get an extension to reduce his $15 million cap hit.
Right.
I can't see Lazard doing anything there. It sucks the Zach Wilson thing. I think he's actually the 7th highest cap hit next year on the team, which is really unfortunate.
Gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it is. Maybe you see Quincy get a restructure, even though he's in the second year of the deal, because he's only got 6.6 in dead cap, but a $7.1 million cap hit. Yeah, I could see that happening there. I could see a couple things kind of still bringing. Everything else is pretty small potatoes in that front, right? So it'll just be really interesting to see what else is done. Wow, Mike Williams' cap hit's only 2.7 mil next year. There's a lot of dead cap behind it. Wow, they're really all in. Okay, so maybe there's not as much room as I thought there would be. We're going all in there, but who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I would expect a couple of things to kind of be tweaked around a little bit, or maybe that draft pick gets traded out for Ayuk, as Adnan was kind of alluding to, and I think Monty would be on. I think we'd all be on board with that, right?
Oh my God, I'm pretty sure I would go streaking at that point, just run around naked, doing cartwheels, down.
I would put every penny I have on the Jets to win a Super Bowl. Every penny I have if they trade.
I put a good amount on it. So
already, I love it.
Yeah, and I'm already getting cash out offers, so which just means I'm going to lose that money later. But anyway, excited for the stuff to come. We're going to do a mock draft episode fairly soon, so look forward to that. And in the meantime, just to make it very clear, since the Dolphin fans are coming up for, I don't even know what the fuck that's going to look like, but fuck the Patriots, fuck the Dolphins, fuck the Bills. Fuck the Dolphins, fuck the Dolphins, fuck the Dolphins, fuck the Dolphins.
And go Jets.
Go Jets. Go Jets. Thank you.